Dressed in a crimson red, knee-length dress and black heels, she carried herself with quiet confidence. Her natural curls were neatly styled, and her focus was on the task at hand. She approached the counter, where a middle-aged teller was stationed. Without glancing up, the teller, a white woman with blonde hair pulled back into a low ponytail, asked, "Name and purpose?" Danielle responded politely, "Danielle Carter. I have an appointment for identity verification under NextX account." The teller finally looked up, her expression unreadable. Danielle handed over her government-issued ID, a formality she'd done countless times before. The teller took it with 2 fingers, studied it briefly, then frowned. Behind Danielle, 3 other women stood in line. They wore business casual outfits in soft pastel shades, powder blue, light coral, and lavender. They chatted quietly, but their voices dimmed as they sensed tension rising at the counter. "This doesn't look right," the teller said abruptly, tilting the ID under the light. "Are you sure this is yours?" Danielle's posture stiffened slightly. "Yes, I'm sure. That's my legal identification." The teller scoffed under her breath, then let the ID drop to the floor, landing near Danielle's feet. "You call that an ID?" she said, half laughing. Danielle looked down at her ID, then back up at the teller. The sudden silence in the room was jarring. One of the women in line blinked in disbelief. No one moved. Without a word, Danielle knelt to retrieve the ID. Her movements were deliberate, composed. She didn't argue. She didn't explain. She simply rose, looked the teller in the eye, and said with calm clarity, "That ID runs the company funding your bank's biggest transaction this quarter." The tension lingered. A moment that was supposed to be routine had become something else entirely. The ID felt heavier in Danielle's hand now, not because of its weight, but because of the eyes that had just witnessed what happened. She straightened up, her heels firm on the glossy floor, and slid the card back into her wallet with practiced grace. The teller, however, showed no sign of remorse. Her nameplate read Linda. She leaned back in her chair with crossed arms and an indifferent expression, as if nothing unusual had occurred. "You can wait over there," Linda said flatly, gesturing toward the lobby chairs without even making eye contact. Danielle took a breath, holding back the immediate sting of frustration. She glanced briefly behind her. The 3 women in line had gone completely silent. One of them, in a lavender blazer, exchanged a glance with the woman beside her. Shock was written all over their faces, but no one said a word. Danielle wasn't new to this kind of moment. Over the years, she had learned the art of swallowing rage and replacing it with precision. But something about the way Linda had tossed her ID, not handed it back, not questioned politely, but thrown it to the ground, cut deeper than usual. It wasn't just unprofessional. It was dehumanizing. "I'll wait," Danielle replied softly, choosing her words carefully. She walked over to the side chairs and sat down, back straight, face blank. She wasn't going to create a scene. She was going to document it in silence, because sometimes silence spoke louder than outbursts. Behind the counter, Linda whispered something to a colleague, followed by a smirk. Danielle noticed. And so did the woman in the blue blouse standing behind her. Minutes passed. No one came to assist her. No one followed up. Her scheduled appointment had now become an uncomfortable pause in everyone's day. Danielle tapped her phone screen, pulling up the final partnership agreement. The transfer wasn't just about money, it was about trust. And at that moment, sitting in a bank that questioned her identity, she realized something: trust was already broken. The $2 billion deal still sat untouched in digital form. But in her mind, something had already shifted. Just as Danielle was about to stand and walk out, a voice called from across the lobby. "Ms. Carter?" She turned. It was Mr. Reynolds, the regional director of Hamilton Federal, mid-50s, sharp suit, and the kind of presence that made people stand straighter. He was on his way to a boardroom meeting but froze when he saw her sitting alone by the wall. "Yes," Danielle replied, standing up slowly. Reynolds frowned. "Why are you waiting over there? Weren't you scheduled for a 9:30 verification under Next Tech?" Before Danielle could answer, Linda interjected, now clearly unsettled. "She didn't have the right ID, sir. I was just verifying." "That's not true," Danielle said firmly but calmly, cutting her off. She pulled the ID from her wallet and handed it directly to Reynolds. He looked it over, nodded, and then looked back at Linda. "This is valid. And you were told to expect Ms. Carter today. She's our priority client." Linda paled slightly, but said nothing. The other staff nearby had gone quiet. Even the background noise of printers and murmuring customers seemed to fade. Reynolds turned back to Danielle. "Please come with me. Let's finish this upstairs." Danielle nodded and followed him, the red heels clicking softly on the tile. As she passed the three women still in line, one of them muttered, "Unbelievable," under her breath, this time not at Danielle, but at what they had witnessed. Linda remained frozen behind the counter, staring at her screen, face flushed with embarrassment but still not offering an apology. Upstairs in the elevator, Reynolds broke the silence. "I'm truly sorry, Miss Carter. This isn't how we treat our clients, especially not you." Danielle didn't respond right away. Her gaze was calm, but her words were cold. "I've seen this before. But this time I'm not brushing it off." The elevator doors opened. A long glass hallway led toward the boardroom. And though Danielle walked it without a raised voice, the message she carried was already louder than anything she could have shouted. The boardroom was sleek, glass walls, a polished table, leather chairs, and a view of the Manhattan skyline that most people only saw on postcards. Danielle had been in rooms like this many times, but today, it wasn't business as usual. She placed her folder on the table with quiet precision. "Mr." Reynolds stood beside her, still trying to recover the dignity of the institution he represented. "We're ready to move forward with the final authorization," he said, motioning to the documents. "I've spoken to our legal and client services. What happened downstairs, please understand, it's unacceptable, and we will act on it." Danielle looked at him without blinking. "You'll act on it because it's visible now. Because I wasn't a junior associate or an intern." Reynolds sighed. "You're right. And that's on us." She opened the folder slowly, not to sign, but to slide across a different document. It was stamped with NextX letterhead. "What's this?" he asked, scanning the title. "Termination of engagement," she replied. Her voice was level, no anger, no theatrics. Just facts. Reynolds leaned forward. "Danielle, this is a $2 billion deal. We've been working together for months." She nodded. "And in 1 minute, your staff decided that my face didn't match my success. That I wasn't who I said I was. If I let that slide, what message am I sending to the women who come after me?" He tried again. "We can fix this. Public apology, internal review, anything you ask." Danielle looked out the window for a brief moment, then turned back. "This isn't just about Linda. It's about culture. The kind that doesn't question a white man in a hoodie, but makes a black woman in heels explain her existence." Silence settled between them. "I built Nextech on trust. Today, I lost trust in this institution," she said. "That's not something I recover with paperwork." She gathered her things. Reynolds didn't stop her. He knew there was nothing left to say. Danielle didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She had chosen silence, and it spoke louder than anything in that room. Danielle exited the bank the same way she had entered, composed, graceful, and focused. But everything had changed. The crimson blazer she wore caught the morning light as she stepped out onto the sidewalk, holding a single folder in one hand and her ID in the other. Her face was calm, yet unreadable. Behind the stillness was a storm that had passed, not one of rage, but of resolution. Inside, the ripple effect had already begun. Linda's desk sat empty. She had been asked to step away pending review. The staff was quieter now, cautious. The 3 women who had witnessed the incident earlier filed quiet reports to HR that afternoon. None of them wanted to be silent witnesses to that kind of moment again. Danielle didn't speak to the press. She didn't post about it online. There were no dramatic headlines, no viral outrage. Just a powerful silence that reached the ears it needed to. By the end of the week, Hamilton Federal's board was in emergency meetings. Danielle's decision to cancel the deal sent waves across the financial sector. The $2 billion partnership had found a new home. With a bank that welcomed her with professionalism, not prejudice. Colleagues called to express regret. A few senior executives from the bank reached out personally. But Danielle responded to none. Some statements don't need words. Some truths are felt in the quiet fallout of action. And for those who still questioned what happened, the message was simple: she didn't burn bridges. She simply chose not to cross one that refused to recognize her. That single moment, an ID on the floor, a woman on her knees, and the silence that followed, left behind more than discomfort. It left behind accountability. Danielle didn't need revenge. She didn't want attention. What she wanted was respect, and she walked away with more of it than ever before. As the glass doors of the bank closed behind her for the last time, Danielle didn't look back. She didn't have to. Because when dignity speaks in silence, the world listens.